coming to you from Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Again, we're talking about how to recession-proof your income. Last week we had technical difficulties, and it appears that we're having technical difficulties again today. We have a whole lot of people at home on the internet, and the internet keeps going down. So we are going to pre-record tonight's session, and then tonight's session we will do it tomorrow. So as we begin, we're talking about debt to income ratio. So we ended last week with a question. What are 5 things that Warren Buffett, Oprah Winfrey, and Bill Gates all have in common? 5 things they all have in common. They all have multiple streams of income. They all have residual income. They all have written books. They all employ others. And they all invest in real estate. So when we talk about successful people, if you look at the model for successful people, most successful people aren't just doing one thing. They're doing multiple things, and they're investing their money in multiple different areas so that they can recession-proof their income. So tonight we want to start with debt to income ratio. So tonight we're talking about debt to income ratio. As we get started with that, debt is something that is owed or due. It's borrowing against future income. So we need to understand what our debt to income ratio is, and we need to talk about what is a acceptable debt to income ratio. So let's delve into it. When we talk about debt to income ratio, we're talking about your income versus your debt. And debt actually, a lot of people look at utility bills, insurance, gas in their car as debt. But that's not when you're talking about applying for a loan, when you're talking about getting a mortgage, we're looking at what the lenders are looking at as debt. So let's go into what the lenders consider debt. So in figuring out your debt to income ratio, lenders will first consider your car note falls under debt, your mortgage falls under debt, student loans fall under debt, credit card falls under debt, personal loans so we have car note, mortgage, student loans, credit card, personal loans, home equity loans, and we have lines of credit, so when we're talking about debt, we're more or less talking about money that you can borrow either from a financial institution, a bank, or any loan that you get, which most times carry an interest rate tied to that type of mortgage. So then we talk about debt versus living expenses. So when a lender is looking at your debt to income ratio, these are the things that they're considering. Now, they do not consider your living expenses, which is gas for your car, electricity for your house or wherever you live in, water, if you have a house that runs on electric and gas, you may have a gas bill. You have your food. You have your cell phone bill. You may have, you may go to the hair salon, to the nail salon. You may have a gym membership. So again, under living expenses, we have gas for our car, electricity, water bill, gas bill, food, cell phone bill, hair, nails. We have our car insurance. We have our health insurance. Okay, so these are things that fall under your living expenditures. So when we're looking at the debt, what is an acceptable debt to income ratio? Most lenders will say a good debt to income ratio is anything that falls between 30 to 35%. But some lenders will even allow you to have a debt to income ratio of 50%. So the problem becomes if you're putting 50% of your income into debt, in addition to that, you need to also consider your living expenses, which is where people get in trouble. They end up with a very high debt, and then by the time they add their living expenses, they're actually living paycheck to paycheck. So we want to talk about ways to reduce debt and also ways to increase income. Now we will be talking more during the next sessions on ways to increase income. So let's look at a debt to income ratio. So say your income is, we're looking at an income of 100,000, and we're saying a acceptable debt ratio is 35% of your income. So if you take the 100,000 times the 35%, you come up with 35,000. You divide that by 12 months in a year, so your monthly debt shouldn't exceed $2,916.66. So again, if your income is 100,000, you're using a 0.35 debt to income ratio, which brings you to 35,000 divided by 12 months in a year, means your monthly expenditure should not be over $2,916.66. Let's break that down. So if we say a monthly debt of $2,916, say you have a car note of 300 that runs $375 a month. You have credit cards that run $75 a month. You have student loans that run $100 a month, and you have installment loans that run $225 a month. So your total debt is $775. You have to take those fixed debts from your total monthly debt. So we take the 2,916, we minus out all these other debts that you have, which means you have technically $2,141 left over for either rent or for a mortgage. So $2,141 a month left over for your living expense, for your mortgage or for your rent. If you're looking at a mortgage with a $2,000 a month mortgage payment, you're talking about a house that's valued roughly around $300,000 to $325,000. The way people get in trouble is they see what their amount left over for their mortgage is, and then they want to buy a $500,000 house with a $100,000 income, and so they end up taking their debt to income ratio up to almost 50% in order to even qualify for a $500,000 house. So again, let's talk about things that we can do to lower our debt to income ratio. The first thing we look at is the car note. Again, $375 is an average car note. It's not going to get you a luxury car. So sometimes we may want to look at a smaller car, a lesser expensive car. We want to look at our credit card debt. Can we pay the credit card debt down? How can we pay the credit card debt down? We want to look at the same thing with the student loans and installment loans. Because once you get this $775 down, then it actually increases the amount that you can actually borrow for a mortgage. There are only two things that I recommend that we should ever borrow money for, and that's a house or a car. So again, as we talk about things that we borrow money for, and we look at these different things, we say, what do we put on a credit card? What do we put on the installment loans? So if you're putting jewelry, furniture, iPads, widescreen TVs, just luxury items on debt, then that's something that's not a necessity. So we want to make sure that as we delve into this, that we're considering all the different ways that we can actually improve our debt to income ratio. So now let's go back to, again, recession proof in our income. So now we're looking at all our debt, we're looking at our living expenses, and then on top of that, we have to pay taxes at the end of the year. So when you add this up, if you add a 40% debt to income ratio on your debt, and then you're over here, and we also have tithes, because we want to make sure that we're upbuilding God's kingdom also. So we have tithes, so you have 40% of your income going into debt, and then over here you may have another 30% going into other living expenses, which gives you a 70% debt to income ratio. And then if you add what they're telling you, most economists will tell you to save 10% of your income, and then you have another 5 to 10% of your income going into entertainment or travel. You can see how you can get in trouble. So we got 40 plus 30 is 70 plus 10% savings gives us 80, and then 5 to 10% traveling gives us 90%. So again, 90% of our income, 90% of our income is going out. 90% of our income is going out on a monthly basis just to live and to kind of sort of enjoy life a little bit. So there are things that we can do as we prepare to recession proof our income. We look at our income and we also look at our debt. Again, idealistically, it would be nice to be able to increase our income from 100,000 to 150,000 to 140,000. It would be nice to be able to do that, but again, we need to figure out ways to do that and ways to still have time to spend with our family and to do the things that we need to do as far as being with the family and having time with the family. So again, there are two major components to financial security. The first one is multiple streams of income, and the second one is residual income. Next week, we're going to deal with multiple streams of income and residual income. So let's talk about debt a little bit further. Let's go into the mindset of the average person. The average person wants a nice house. They want a nice car. They want clothes, which again falls under living expenses. We did not put anything down here for considering that we're going to be buying clothes. So again, you can see how long the list can be when you actually get into talking about your living expenses, and then you look at your actual debts. So what we want to do is A, figure out ways to get out of debt. B, figure out ways to increase our income. C, figure out ways to decrease some of our regular living expenses. So I live in a house and I have guest bedrooms. And what I traditionally do, I have lights as well as alarm clocks and telephones in the guest bedroom. Well, how often do I have guests? So I'm burning up lights and electricity. So what I tend to do is unplug everything in the guest room when there's no guests in the house. Even in my kitchen, I unplug my toaster, I unplug my coffee pot, I unplug everything that's not a necessity to be used, because I may drink coffee 2 to 3 times a week, at the house, so why am I plugging a coffee pot in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when it's not being used? So we want to talk about making sure that we're turning lights off, that we're unplugging things that's not being used, that we're actually looking at ways that we can save on our expenditures and save on our debt. So again, we want to make sure that we keep this 100,000 in mind. So what I want you all to do that's watching this video, I want you to take your income and I want you to use a 35 to 40% debt. So I want you to take your income times 35 to 40%. Okay, so again, what we want everyone that's listening to this training session, what we want you all to do is we want you to take your income and we want you to times it by 35 to 40% and then divide it by 12. We want you all to start listing all your debts and all your expenditures and all your living expenses. And then we want you all to be able to see exactly where your money is, what you're spending your money on. And then we will see you again next week to talk about residual income, multiple streams of income, and ways to increase your income. Thank you.